welcome back to another Tuesday grilling video, and it feels weird to say this, but happy Thanksgiving. And I say it sounds weird because I've been working on this for 2.5 months. I've tried out a bunch of different ways on the best way to smoke a Thanksgiving turkey, and I've been working on it since about August. Here we are. This is actually the day after Halloween, so it's November 1st, and I am going to show the recording of all the results of that. What we're going to do is we're going to smoke a turkey out on the pellet smoker. We're going to spatchcock it, which means cut it open and lay it flat. It's a great way to present it, cooks really evenly, and I'm going to show you a super way to roast some vegetables with it. Phenomenal and easy and simple. You'll probably see a lot of different videos and recipes out there that talk about brine in the turkey, and I've tried those and they are good. But I will tell you, just marginally less good. Just marginally is this method, and it doesn't require you to start prep or day ahead or anything like that. All in all, it takes about 3.5 to 4 hours to prep and cook. So this is not something that ends up killing your prep time ahead of Thanksgiving. I would encourage you to go ahead and try this, and try it before Thanksgiving if you want to do a trial run. Especially if you're the one on the hook for cooking the bird, you don't want to make this the first time you do it. But I will tell you, I've done a bunch of these. This is the method. Simple and easy and delicious. So the first thing I'm going to do before we prep the bird, and I'll show you how to spatchcock it, is I'm going to prep some vegetables. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay them down in a deep cookie sheet or a roasting pan. And I'm going to lay the bird on top of it. All those juices from the bird are going to go down and roast these vegetables as we go. Pick whatever kind of winter vegetables you want. We're going to do some potatoes. I have some little tiny Yukon Golds, a couple of small russets, a sweet potato, some onion, garlic, carrots, and celery. You can do butternut squash or an acorn squash or some kind of a winter squash as well. That's always a good thing to do. But you want something that's all about cut the same size and all a fairly hearty vegetable because they're going to be in there a while. All right, let's go ahead and get started prepping these. So the first thing we did is I have these little baby Yukons. They're small. I mean, they're just $half size or so. We're going to throw those out there. And now I'm going to cut up and peel the potatoes. I've got a bowl here for peeling these things in. You can peel them if you want. You certainly don't have to. Actually, perfectly candid with you, I'm peeling these because they were on the counter for a few days. They started to get a couple little eyes growing on them. So yeah, just trimming off the outer edge. Sweet potato doesn't look that good. I'm leaving that up. You can decide what size you want to cut the carrots. You want them to be about the same size as everything else so they cook the same. But I don't. All in all, I ended up doing 3 russet potatoes, maybe 10 or so of the little tiny Yukon Golds. I did about 4 stalks of celery with the celery root, 3 or 4 carrots, and 1 onion. And I went ahead and used a sweet onion, a 1015 or a Vidalia, whatever they're called in your area. I'm just going to go ahead and season these up a little bit. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not selling a rub, so I'm not going to tell you to cover everything today in a ton of rub. This is simply a little salt, pepper, and garlic, and I'm just going to do salt and pepper on the vegetables, and then I'm going to do salt, pepper, and garlic on the bird. But it's as simple as that. You don't need much more, and the flavor's phenomenal. I mean, at the end of the day, what we want to taste is smoked bird, not a ton of rub. If you have some fresh thyme or rosemary, now'd be a time to throw some right down in here. I don't happen to have any, so I won't be doing that. This is going to be the bed that we end up setting our turkey right on top of. That bowl in the sun gets hot. All right, let's go ahead and talk turkey. So the grill we're going to be using today is actually the PitBoss pellet smoker and gas grill combo. It means that the chambers are a little bit smaller than maybe some others. I can get about an 18-pound bird in the smoke side without a problem. But what I found to be the sweet spot, especially if you're only talking about having under 8 people, is about an 11 to 14-pound turkey. That's pretty good. This one happens to be just under 10.9, so really close to 11 pounds. And I've tried this with just getting a turkey breast. I've tried doing them whole. I've tried going out and buying fresh at the local farmer's market. By the way, this one costs $19, not on sale, at a regular grocery store. and it was previously frozen. That's okay. You'll hear a lot of people say that's not. We got the fresh one. The fresh one cost us about $70, and I will tell you, I didn't taste too much of a difference. So there you go, right? There probably is, for sure, and if you want to support your local farmers, it's a way to go. But I don't want you to feel like you have to do that to have a really good tasting turkey. So we're going to be using this. This one happens to be Butterball. I think Jenny-O is the other common one you see in a bunch of grocery stores this time of year. As we get into the holidays, well, you see them all year round, but most people aren't shopping for them until now. And as I mentioned before, we've tried cooking them whole, and it was really tough to get all of it cooked all the way through without it getting too crispy in some areas. But by spatchcocking it, we get everything fairly close to the same flatness. The breast takes the longest to get done, so you'll end up seeing like 8 to 10 degrees warmer in the thigh than it would be in the breast. But that's okay. The thigh's the dark meat, it's a little bit fattier, it can withstand it without drying out. This is the way to go ahead and do it. Now, I'm doing this right out of the package because I want to show you, this one is not going to be brined. Again, brining's good, brining tastes good with your turkey, but it's not required for a damn good Thanksgiving bird. So we'll grab the neck out of here. Usually the gizzards are up here in the neck sections. We'll grab those. There's our pouch with the liver and gizzards. You certainly want to make sure you get all that out of there. And let me show you how we go about spatchcocking this bird. So basically what spatchcocking is we turn it upside down. So you got the breast up, we turn it upside down, and we are going to remove the backbone. And I've done this with hens, I've done this with turkeys. I will say you need a good pair of poultry shears. These are okay, they're not great. This is going to be a lot of work to get it done. So if your turkey comes with one of these little metal or plastic brackets that hold the legs in place, a lot of them from the grocery store do. This one just happened to cut the fat right here and stuck him in there. Make sure you take those out. You want the legs to be loose here. Same with the wings, you want them loose. And you can decide if we cut the tips on or off. I'll show you how I'm going to do mine. I usually leave them on. But now what we want to do is flip this guy over. So when you flip it over, if you kind of pull back this opening in the front, you can see there's the backbone, right? You can feel the sort of neck where it was connected, and then it goes right back here to where that tail is. And on a bird about this size, we're probably talking about 1.5 inches wide. So we want to go maybe just 3/4 of an inch, 3/4 to an inch over, and we want to start cutting it. Simple as that. Use our poultry shears. Now you can go buy high dollar ones of these as well, but I'm not doing that. And there's times when you have to sort of get your hands up really on that to get through some of that rib bone. But as you snap it, it's not too bad. It comes through there. Just be careful. I don't know if you can hear the crunching as it breaks through those rib bones. Alright, so we now have one side cut through, and you can usually just turn it around and do it. I find it's easiest just to kind of keep doing the exact same thing. So I start right on the back again. Now, the big question is, what do you do with this, right? I will tell you, I save it. I think it makes a phenomenal stock, and I'm going to be doing that with the neck and everything else. So I'm going to take that entire backbone with the tail. Where's that tail? The tail's still attached back here for a little bit of this fat. Use the tail as well. That's going to go into our stock. Now, what we're going to need to do is open this thing up, and in order to do that, there's a little muscle right here. You can see, if you can see this. It sort of looks like a little rubber band or something. We're going to cut that because that's going to allow us to press this thing down and snap that breastbone. There's a lot of trimming you can do on this too. I'll show you that in a minute. But I'm going to keep this nice and simple to start. So I'm going to cut out a little bit more of this fat right back here on the back where the tail was. If you can see this, see my fingers right behind that piece. That is the tendon we want to cut. That's going to make it a little easier for us to spread this thing out. And then you'll also notice there's some meat in here. You can definitely see the bone, and then there's this piece of meat right here. We're going to cut that as well. I'm going to turn this around so I can see it. And you'll notice right where the wishbone is. So if you've ever done the whole wishbone thing when you're a kid, that's right the area you want to see if you can snip that. It'll make it a lot easier to snap. Let me show you what we're gonna do. We're gonna take this. Did you hear that? That's exactly what we want to hear. We snap that little breastplate right there, and that allows us to now take this entire bird and lay it flat. Now you can cut these off. I like to take them and tuck them back like this. It helps hold the bird in that position. I am going to trim some of the excess fat off of here. If it's not something you're going to eat, may as well get rid of it. I know a lot of people like skin, and the skin is definitely good. Where it sits on top of the bird, we're going to leverage that. It's going to become crispy and delicious. But where it's thicker on the bottom side here, it takes a lot longer for that fat to render down. And that's all it ends up doing. It's getting to be soft, grizzly fat. Now just take a look at how nice and flat this guy will sit. That is what gives us a nice even cook when we do these. All I've got is a paper towel. We get it nice and dry. The reason we get it dry is we want this skin to be crisp. We don't want it to steam the whole time we're cooking it. We'll get a little bit of that from the vegetables, but that'll go on the bottom side of it. Now I'm going to flip it over. We're going to do the same thing on this side. Now you don't want to wipe here. You want to just dab. You'll notice there's a membrane on this. That's exactly what you want. That's going to help hold in some of that freshness, some of that juice. But definitely tuck your paper towel all throughout this bird. Get it as dry as you can. As I mentioned before, this does not have to be fancy. I'm doing salt, pepper, and garlic. I'm not even pre-mixing it. I'm just cranking fresh garlic right down on top of it. I'm going to do plenty on the back side here. All right, I'm going to repeat with salt. I'm just using I think it's actually a Himalayan, it's kosher rock salt is what it is. I might have mixed it with some Himalayan pink, I don't remember. All right, repeat the same thing up here. I want to make sure these wingtips are tucked back. All right, so here's the other trick we want to do. You want to grab this skin and you want to begin to separate this. Just stick your finger in there, find an opening, and continue to separate the skin from the meat. What you're doing is you're building a cavity up in here. We're going to season inside of here as well. Also shows you where you missed a little section of the trim. There you go. Because we're going to get some seasoning right down here directly on that meat as well. Now don't worry about the fact that you think you're going to let it dry out too much. We'll be okay. We're going to drizzle this with some butter as we cook it, so we'll get plenty of time to get some in there. Next thing we're going to do is fire up the smoker. I'm going to set it at about 275 degrees, and we're going to come check it about every 45 minutes. What we want to do is go between about 160 to 165 degrees in the breast. Those thighs will probably end up being 165 to 170. That's okay. But we want to pull it right at that 160 to 165. If you wait till it's 168, 170, it's going to continue to cook and it's going to start to get a little dry. So pull it just a little bit ahead of time. Make sure you're testing it with one of those instant read thermometers in the thickest part of the breast. That's going to be that's typically the last part to actually cook when you spatchcock it. If we did this in an oven or if we left it whole in the smoker, what would end up happening is the thighs typically end up being undercooked because there's so much to cook around that. It's also the reason why we don't stuff this. We're going to set it on top of all of our vegetables. Let's get the grill fired up. And as I mentioned before, we have this PitBoss Pro Series combo unit. It's got the pellet smoker on this side and the gas grill on the other. You can certainly do this in a stick smoker. You can do this in a kettle grill, a charcoal grill, or even a gas grill. Just make sure you do it with indirect heat and you're shooting for that 275 degree range for the overall unit itself. Now, when you do this, you don't want something really heavy smoke. You probably don't want a mesquite. You typically want something like hickory or oak or maybe even any of the fruit woods. PitBoss has this competition blend that's available just at the local grocery store, Home Depot, Walmart by me. It's inexpensive and it's a great flavor. It's a blend of a bunch of different woods. That's what I'm going to go ahead and use today. So let me get this thing fired up and I'll set it on smoke until we actually get it up to the smoking temperature that keeps us from getting out overrun on pellets, and then we'll crank it up to 275. All right, I'm gonna let this thing come up to smoking temperature while I clean up. So we have our bed of vegetables here, and all we're gonna do is lay our bird right on top of this bed of vegetables, and we're going to slide the whole thing right in there. So let me get that prepped. All right, so here we go. This looks phenomenal. It's sitting on top of that bed of vegetables. We're just gonna open this up, slide it right in. If you have a PitBoss that has a sear plate, make sure it's closed. You definitely don't want that to be the case. You don't want the flames to hit the bottom. You have a real hot spot right here. We will end up, I'm gonna slide this a little off center so the breast meat is over that pot and everything else is a little bit to the side of it. That'll just sort of help a little bit more temperature there and less in the other spot. So the hottest spot over the thickest part. Every 45 minutes I wanted to come out and check the turkey, just check the temperature, and I've rotated it around just so I don't end up with any hot spots on the grill. Forgive the squinting, I'm looking right into the sun this way. So it's been on that now for an hour and a half. I've come out twice and done that. And now what I'm gonna do is I have a little bit of butter. It's basically just butter with a few drops of some jerk seasoning in it. You can put almost anything you want in here. A little bit of honey, a little bit of agave would be good. You can do a little bit of bourbon and cook it down. Just a little tiny bit of a glaze, but you definitely want some high-fat butter on here. That's going to help crisp up the skin, keep it moist, and really make it look beautiful as it continues to smoke. So we've been at 250 degrees for the last hour and a half. I'm going to get the probe. We're going to check the temperature. I may crank it up to 300 and finish it off at that temperature until we get 165 degrees, between 160 and 165 in the breast. All right, let's give this thing a check out. It's showing 200 on this temp thermometer, but as you can see, we're right at 250. Well, if you can see that. Look at that, it's looking pretty good. We're about 145 to 155, so let me turn this thing around, we'll get it basted, and then we'll come back in about 15 or 20 minutes and check it again. We're probably pretty close to being done. And what we want to be careful to do here is not, as I baste this with some of this butter, we don't want to brush off the seasoning. So we're not going to be brushing like we're trying to paint a house here. We're just sort of touching it on it, letting some of that butter run down it so we can get that nice crispness of it. I'm going to go ahead and turn this thing up now to 300 as well. All right, we've coated that whole thing with butter. I cranked it up to 300 degrees. I'm going to set a timer for 15 to 20 minutes, come out here, and I think that turkey's going to be really good. We were running 145 to 155 on the temperature there, so I think we're going to be beautiful. Again, we're looking for 160 to 165 in the thickest part. I usually check several places in the breast and then a thick place in the thigh. But by spatchcocking it, cooks it a little quicker. We're sitting right now at about an hour and 45 minutes, probably just somewhere around 2 hours and 10 minutes. We've got when we'll take it off, and then we're going to let it sit for a good 20 minutes or so before we cut it. We want all those juices to seep into it. We don't want to slice it up and have them all run out. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes, and we'll check on this bird. All right, so after we put that butter on, we've probably been about another 15 minutes or so. We're going to go ahead and pull this off and just let it rest. Yeah, it looks beautiful. Beautiful. I'll kind of show you what this looks like. So just take a look at that. Nice and juicy. Feels tender, but firm enough to slice. Some of my carrots are a little over roasted for sure here. Still delicious. Try a piece of this onion. Look at that underneath. Just beautiful. We went ahead and let this just sit for about 20 minutes or so, just to make sure that all the juices went back into it. And I grabbed me just a small amount of the dark meat. I'm a fan of the dark meat. It's really good. Always juicy. Even sitting at about 172 degrees, that dark meat is still juicy and tender. And then I sliced up some breast meat here as well. It's so good. It's not mashed with a barbecue or a seasoning or a rub. Salt, pepper, garlic, that's all it is. Finished off with a little bit of that butter, and I added just a tad of Jamaican jerk seasoning in that butter. So probably a half a teaspoon of it mixed in with, I don't know, half a stick of butter. But this is really good. I encourage you to try this. If you're on the hook for your Thanksgiving turkey and you've got a smoker, I'd encourage you to give it a shot. Turkey's a pretty inexpensive meat. Try and do a trial run between now and Thanksgiving. Happy holidays. Hope you guys enjoy it. And if whether you watch this for Thanksgiving or you watch it any other time of the year, enjoy turkey, smoked turkey. Pretty darn good. Even the skin is crispy. We'll see y'all next Tuesday on another grilling video. Bye y'all. Safe and fun grilling.